Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Can we start? Okay, guys. Thank you for being here today. My name is Ralf Stuch, and I'm thrilled to welcome you here to this session of the Zero Project Conference 25. Together with our award-winning speakers, Niaz from Bioniks, Esteban, Rojas, Muñoz from Humanos 3D, Michael Peirone from Victoria Hand Project, Noriko Takahashi, and Eduardo Moreira from UNIDO. We will tackle one of the most pressing issues in accessibility and mobility, making quality prosthetics globally accessible and affordable. Imagine a world where losing a limb doesn't mean losing your future. A world where prosthetics are not a privilege, but a right, accessible to everyone and everywhere. That's the world we are hoping and supporting to be built. Prosthetics are more than devices. They are bridges to independence, dignity, and opportunity. Yet, for millions, those bridges remain out of reach. High costs, lack of infrastructure, and limited resources keep quality care locked away, especially in low and middle-income countries. This isn't just a healthcare issue, it's a human rights issue. There are fantastic prosthetic solutions in the world from world market leaders. Recently, we learned that an astronaut is on a moon or space mission with a prosthetic leg. However, 80 to 90% of the global amputees have no access to such a prosthesis, or even worse, they have no access to any fitting at all. Luckily, the tide is turning. Innovations like 3D printing, modular designs, and digital fabrication are revolutionizing the prosthetics industry, making devices more affordable and customizable. Organizations are also building local capacity through training programs, ensuring that prosthetics can be produced and maintained in underserved regions. Today, we will talk and learn about these advancements and discuss how we can scale these solutions to make quality prosthetics accessible to everyone, everywhere. We will also address the importance of collaboration between governments, NGOs, private companies, and communities to create sustainable systems that prioritize inclusivity and equity. Today, it's not just a pure session about something. It's a movement to ensure that no one should be left behind, and we are leaving a lot behind. So let's roll up our sleeves, share our ideas, and work together to make quality prosthetics a reality for all. Thank you guys for being here and for your commitment to this important cause, and let's dive in. I will start with a company I'm shareholder of, and the company is called Horus, and our purpose is to develop a low-cost, easy-to-fit, robust prosthetic device, which is then brought into the countries. Our slogan is, "We make people walk." And we did it already in Peru. Our founder is from Peru. We fitted 30 patients in Peru with our system, and in Ukraine we fitted 50 soldiers. Our system is developed a software. We are scanning the stump of the patient, and then we are producing the socket in Berlin, producing the full leg in Berlin, and sending, we call it the leg in the box, send it to the patient in the country. And in the country, we are working with physiotherapists who are then fitting the patient. So the beauty beside that the system is easy to manage is as well that it is very, very quick. So normally a prosthetic fitting lasts for minimum 1 week. You have to go to the O&P workshop, they are doing the cast, they are preparing everything, then you go back and forth. It's almost 1 week. In our case, you walk in the morning, 9 o'clock, and you leave after lunch, 1 o'clock, with your ready-made prosthesis. This is the beauty of our system. And it's pretty cool, and we like it, and we are rolling out our system at the moment all over the world. So, but now it's the time that I hand over to my speaker colleagues. The next one is Niaz from Bioniks. Anas, you take over, please.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm Niaz. I'm 183 centimeters tall, wearing black suit and green tie. I'm from Pakistan. So my journey started in 2016 when I was doing a robotics engineering in Pakistan, and I received a random email from a family whose child was born without a hand. They asked me, since you are doing a robotics engineering, can you make a prosthetic arm for my little boy? So I thought it could be an interesting project, and I made an Iron Man hand for him. It was a really great moment for me to know how this piece of plastic can convert a lot of happiness in that 5-year-old child. But unfortunately, when I found out that the prosthetic accessibility is a real challenge globally, and if you make a human chain around the world, it can go 4 times of people with amputation who does not have access to the prosthetics. So how we are able to solve this solution, we wanted to create something which was cost effective, which has sweat-proof and waterproof sensors, because most of the time, the prosthetics that are made are in cold climates, does not function very well in climates which have hot and humidity. And then we, of course, wanted to make a product that is circular so that anything cannot go to waste, and we can also recycle the product properly. Then the real challenge was, it's not just about the prosthetic, it's also about sending the prosthetic and helping people in their own areas. So we introduced tele-rehabilitation process through which now people can take measurements through our scanning app, and we can deliver the prosthetic at their nearest clinic or at their doorstep. So now these prosthetic devices, the bionic devices, are accessible for everyone. And we just not leave our patients like that. What we do is, the system is AI powered, so it refines its movements on every 10 or 15 days through machine learning so that it gets improvement. Then the other challenge that we faced with people with upper limb amputation from the above shoulder, a lot of countries required you to have TMR surgery. But for us, because we are using AI, so now the TMR surgery is not a requirement anymore. The best part of our prosthetic is now people can play guitar with this, ride bicycle, and even walk with our prosthetic legs. Up till now, this prosthetic is not just a device for them, but it also contributes into the economy. So our more than 700 users are able to generate $700,000 annually. That goes back to the society. And we now explain how this is not a charity model, but it is an investment from the government side so that they can improve the economical situation around their countries. We just not focus onto the bionic limbs or prosthetic limbs. We believe the community is the real success. So we create a community so that people can talk to each other and help them in social, economical well-being. And now most of our users are employed and help each other to regain mobility again. If somebody needs to create a prosthetic in mass quantity, they have to build a huge infrastructure, and the challenges are beyond limits. So what we do is, we have came up with a great solution. We have put in a lab inside a container. The standard size container that can produce 700 to 900 bionic limbs in a month. And it's all run by clean energy, generates zero waste. And it has a good ROI because we just don't want to focus onto the donation side. We want to create an ecosystem where people can have benefits and motivation all around it. As I'll just play a video. Okay.
Is it working?
Sorry, it's gone. Can you play the video? Yeah? So in the video, you will see that how our users from different part of the country can now do almost everything. They can write with this arm. They can ride with our bionic limbs. Okay, I'll just keep explaining. So just give you a reference. So we have our one user who is bilateral amputee, and he just wears one bionic arm. He teaches in a school, and he has 200 students that he teaches every day with just an arm. He not only takes care of himself, but he also takes care of his family and contributing back to the society. Similar like him, we have users that can play guitar, and before their amputation, they were great guitarists. But now they feel that they have missed something, but fortunately the technology is here to help them, and now they can go back to the society and go back to their fans and tell them that how they can do things with the help of technology. So we are a very young team. We are 30 people in working day and night to make this technology accessible for everyone. And we also, because we are a social enterprise, so we also help people who are not able to afford the cost of prosthetics. So we raise donations so that they can get their limbs directly. So you can help us out in putting these containers across the globe so that everybody can have the access to the high quality prosthetic, because in the initial time when we used prototypes and made 3D printed prosthetic, it was really difficult for us to talk to the patients because every time they break something. And we wanted to give them something which is durable, lightweight, and functional so that they can easily do their task on daily basis. Up till now, we have served more than 700 users, and we have also partnered with multiple companies and NGOs across the world through which we are providing our prosthetic limbs. So I wish you would have seen the video. You have seen, okay, so we can. So you can see these people are living in remote areas, but still using, this is the teacher I was talking about. And she can make 3 dresses per day. She can do painting with her arm. Even the food delivery service, they ride bike and everything. So it's more empowering. And the best part about prosthetic we are the most cost-effective solution right now in the market. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I hope you learned and enjoyed the way the Bioniks is changing life for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Anas, for this incredible project. And now we are moving to Hugo Esteban from 3D Humanos. Por favor.
Thank you. So, have you wondered why you do what you do? For example, I create assistive devices through 3D printing technology for people with upper limbs disability. But why I am doing this? Maybe because I just like it, or maybe because I study bioengineer and this is my background, so I know how to do it. Or maybe the simple answer is to say, why not, right? We want to help more people, just like that. But there's always a reason behind of all of this. I don't have a disability, but I know how it's like when you feel different, when you feel that you don't fit in some places. I born in Colombia, where in a little rural area where it was difficult to access to education and technology. I passed to the university, and then I have to travel to the city, and it was so hard for me. Everything was happening so fast, it's so different. And I always feel that everyone was one step ahead of me. And that I saw that for them, I felt that would be easier for them because they have more education, they have a laptop, they have computers, and easy access to that. So I used to feel frustrated and excluded from the society. Then I saw that in Colombia, there are 4 million persons with disability. And you know what? They live far from the city too. They live in rural area and they don't have access to any technology or education in an easy way. And then I saw that this should be difficult for them too. So we decided to create, with my team at Humanos 3D, a project called Mobile Clinics, where we could reach them in an easy way, just traveling around all the country delivering these prosthetics. But we're doing in a different way, because we were educating in the moment. We were creating an innovative distribution model, where we were co-creating with them, understanding their needs, and with that, collaborating with the health system, with the different mayors from communities. So in that way, we could understand where was this population and how could we reach them. And with that, we could reach, we started delivering around 5-10 prosthetics per year. But after, with this mobile clinics project, we could reach around 400 persons until now. And not just in Colombia. We went to Peru. We have delivering prosthetics in Brazil, Mexico, and even in the United States. And this year, we are scaling to Africa too. So we know what we are doing. People believe in this project, and people is looking for our solutions. But what is our solutions? So the best way to explain it is to show this story from Rigoberto. He lost both hands in an accident for a landmine in Colombia, and his dream was to play table tennis again. He was attaching, like you can see there, with tape and in his racket to his stump, and was not working so well. So he started to feel frustrated and excluded too, because he couldn't do the things that he knows that he could do. Here I have the first prototype that we made for him, a simple assisted device making with a 3D scanner and just 3D printing, and it fits well in his stump. With this, he could play table tennis again, and he could play in an international tournament in Germany called Invictus Game, and he became the champion. With this, something a little simple to do, and that would be affordable for him. So, if you see, the problem is not only about the disability, it's about to understand their needs. Sometimes they don't need a hand, they just need an assisted device that do the things that they want to do in a simple way. So if they want to play table tennis, if they want to play the violin, or just brushing their teeth in an independent way, that's what we are looking for. That's what we're doing. We are telling stories. We are hearing their voices because no one is hearing us. No one is hearing them. And with that, we are looking for connections and operational flexibility with collaboration that can help us to reach more people. And how we are doing this? We are a non-profit organization. So our principal source of resources is, of course, crowdfunding campaigns, grants, calls that we won, and with that, we continue giving impact. But at the same time, we know that we can't live only with donations. So we have a business model or educational program about teaching about 3D printing, designing, robotics, to those students that want to know more about about this world. But we are a little different in that way because we teach about this technology, but at the same time, we show how can we give a real social impact with this. So we propose challenge to them. We're talking about the challenge that people with disability they have, and the students, they create the solutions for them. So they are doing a kind of learning by doing, and with that, they are not just doing something theoric. They are really learning. They are using the 3D printers, and they are giving opportunity to a person with disability. At the end, most of them stay as volunteer with us. So we are having a double impact here too. And with the resources that we get for that, we are giving education to the families, to the same recipients, because these devices, we are doing it together, because we need to listen to them. We need to stop to make assumptions and start to understand what they are saying. And with that, our next steps is to looking for new volunteers, national and international. So with different backgrounds, engineering for helping us to improve our devices, our communication, administration, marketing, looking to continue showing our project to the world. And we are looking for mentors. We are young persons just learning from YouTube or with the background that we have in university, but we are still learning about how to make new devices, how to make this visible and sustainable. And of course that we are looking for funding tools. In that way, we want to scale to Africa, and we had an opportunity there in Africa. So what's happening with Colombia? So we need to continue looking for collaborators and for international expansion, for continue helping more people. So if you want to join us, give us a hand, and we promise to give many more.
Thank you, Hugo, for your insights in this wonderful project. And now we are listening to Michael. Please.
Hello, my name is Michael Peirone, and I'm the CEO of Victoria Hand Project. Thank you so much for attending our presentation today. Which one is it? So the high cost of prosthetic arms makes them inaccessible to many amputees around the world, especially in low-income and conflicted affected areas. And in many cases, these devices aren't covered by government programs, meaning that many amputees can't access the care that they need. And this is where Victoria Hand Project comes in. We're a Canadian charity dedicated to improving access to prosthetic care around the world. By using 3D printing technology, we're able to significantly reduce the costs of prosthetic arms while maintaining high quality and functionality. And overall, this makes the devices more accessible to those in need, especially in resource-poor communities. So we are a charity organization, and as part of this, we'll cover the costs of materials and then also the clinical costs for our partners. And this helps make many of the users be able to access prosthetic care at no cost to them. And this helps ensure that financial barriers will never stop someone from receiving a prosthetic device and regaining their mobility. So receiving a prosthetic device can allow someone to regain their independence. And then in many cases, we found it also helps open up employment opportunities that will provide financial stability for the user and their family. So since 2014, we've been dedicated to providing prosthetic arms that are functional, low cost, customizable, and easy to produce in any environment. But what sets us apart is not just the technology, it's our model for delivering care. So what we do is we develop strong partnerships with clinics around the world and provide them with the tools and technology to produce the prosthetic arms themselves. This includes 3D printers, 3D scanners, computers, and specialized assembly tools. But we don't just provide the technology to them. we also provide the skills and training to produce the prosthetic devices themselves. So when we create these partnerships, our team will travel to the country to provide hands-on training to the clinicians on how to produce prosthetic devices, software workflows, and also how to use this equipment. And by providing local clinicians with the knowledge and skills to produce the prosthetic devices themselves, it allows us to better scale to new areas of needs. So each of these prosthetic devices are made by our international partners directly within their own clinics. And by doing so, it eliminates some of the barriers that often lead to people not being able to access prosthetic care, such as long wait times, high costs, and other logistical barriers. So by empowering these clinics with the tools, technology, and expertise, it allows us to create sustainable, ongoing partnerships with clinics around the world. So currently, Victoria Hand Project is working with clinics in 11 countries, and through these partnerships with these clinics, we've provided over 400 upper extremity amputees with their own customized prosthetic devices. And to date, we've also trained over 50 healthcare practitioners on how to use these tools, how to produce and fit the prosthetic arms. And we also offer prosthetic devices for both adults and children, different sizes of prosthetic devices. We have functional prosthetic devices, like the one shown here. I'm just holding one up that people can see later, that allows people to complete daily tasks at home, work, and school. And for those who are seeking a more natural appearance, we also have a cosmetic prosthetic arm. It doesn't function, but it looks very natural, and for some users, they might prefer that, and it helps sort of instill confidence when they're wearing the prosthetic devices. So by using 3D scanning technology, we're able to customize each prosthetic socket, and we can make prosthetic sockets for both below elbow and above elbow amputees. So I want to take a moment to share a video of one of our beneficiaries to highlight how he uses the prosthetic arm. So his name is Andriy, and we fit him in Ukraine in June of 2023, and he's been sending us various videos of how he uses the prosthetic device. So in this video, he's using the prosthetic device for mowing the lawn, picking berries, and cleaning out one of the filters for his car. He's also using it to weld, fish, carry a bag, and there's some text at the bottom where he's primarily talking about his experience of receiving a prosthetic device or difficulties receiving a prosthetic device in Ukraine due to the war. So many beneficiaries have shared how the prosthetic device helps them with daily tasks. So Lewis was a film student in Kenya who uses the prosthetic device to operate a camera when taking photos and videos. Other users have shared how the prosthetic device helps them at home to write, to use their phone, washing dishes, and cooking. And each user has different desires for what they hope to achieve with their prosthetic device. And we strive to create a prosthetic that provides independence and also mobility. So I see I'm running very low on time. But Victoria Hand Project, our vision is a world without barriers to prosthetic care. So we're committed to expanding access to prosthetic care around the world, especially for those who are facing significant barriers to care. So our deployment model has been designed for scalability and to be replicated in new areas of the world. And through years of training clinicians and refining our workflows, we've developed a robust deployment model that allows us to set up these new partnerships very efficiently. So by providing these clinics in low-resource communities with the tools, technology, and training, we're able to empower them to produce and fit the prosthetic devices themselves. And as a charity organization, we do rely on the generosity of donors and grants to continue this work, but through continued support, we can continue to grow to new communities around the world. And then we're also developing new prosthetic devices, like the one shown here, partial hand, for people missing their fingers or part of their hand. So thank you so much for presentation. If you'd like to learn more, please visit our website, social media pages, or talk to me after. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for this amazing project. And now I hand over to Noriko and Eduardo. Please, it's your turn. Yeah, you must. The next one.
Yeah. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm excited to introduce our ongoing project in Ukraine focused on 3D printed prosthetics. I have the privilege of managing this project remotely from Vienna here, while my colleague who's sitting next to me, Eduardo, is leading the implementation of this project on the ground in Lviv, Ukraine. Eduardo just arrived yesterday from Ukraine to be with us today, and we're very excited to share more about our initiative with you today. Before we dive deeper, let me just briefly introduce UNIDO for those who are not really familiar with this organization. We are a specialized agency of the United Nations with a unique mandate to develop, promote industrial development. UNIDO actively contributes to many sustainable development goals, in particular SDG 9, which focuses on building resilient infrastructure, promoting inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and fostering innovation. In addition, we are also implement the UN Disability Inclusion Strategy and are also active member of Interagency Working Group on Gender and Disability Inclusion. Let me just also brief you, share with you how we came up with this project idea. So, as we all know, after the full-scale invasion in Ukraine in 2022, I began brainstorming on something that we could do concerning prosthetics to support people with disabilities in that country. My initial idea was to distribute prosthetics limbs, lower limbs, to help amputees regain mobility and also eventually return to work so that they can lead a normal life. However, during my research, I discovered the potential of this 3D printing technology in prosthetics, which I was really excited about, and together with Eduardo, we decided to shift our approach. Instead of just providing prosthetics, we actually decided to focus on supporting the local production of 3D printed prosthetics in Ukraine. This way, of course, even after our project ends, local specialists will have the skills, but also resources to continue producing affordable, high-quality prosthetics on their own. And here is the outline of a project, which is still ongoing. As I mentioned earlier, the number of amputees in Ukraine has been rising since 2022. Some estimates suggest that there are currently around 3 million people with disabilities in Ukraine. Our strategy is focused on partnering with an international company to transfer 3D printed prosthetics technology by training local workshops and professionals. through this project, our goal has been to build local production capacity, making 3D printed prosthetics more accessible, but also affordable for those who need in Ukraine. So now I would like to pass the floor to Eduardo, who will share his hands-on experience in working on this project in Ukraine, the challenges that he faced, and lessons also he learned, and our next step moving forward. So, Eduardo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So what is making this UNIDO project a bit different from everybody else is that we actually look beyond what are the traditional partners when it comes to accessibility for disabled people. We are very much looking into what is the role of the private sector. So this Japanese company that is working with us was willing to transfer part of their technology locally. And business to business has its own approach on how you do this and how you do this sustainably. This became very, very interesting because we are also leveraging the digital and the AI sectors there. And part of embedding this into the local manufacturing structures also requires that you apply and you learn through real-world application. So in our case, we actually partner with a couple of rehabilitation centers and 6 institutions in Ukraine, 6 private sector institutions, and we conducted a large workshop where we distributed, or we manufactured 32 prosthetics for 32 people that had lost their limbs due to traumatic amputations resulting from the war. The focus on 3D printing prosthetics for Ukraine comes out of this context. It wasn't born outside, it was once we looked at it. It is that the result of the war is that you had a massive increase of people with amputations, and the sector was simply not ready to absorb all of this demand. Additionally, you had the mobilization of a lot of medical professionals into the army. So we were faced with a problem, is that we don't have enough professionals, and creating a prosthetician takes 2 to 3 years, if not more. So we kind of focused more on how do we increase the production efficiency of what already exists. This creates a series of advantages, because if they are more efficient, private sector is more profitable. Therefore, it is sustainable. So we do not face this issue of how do we live afterwards. What happens when inevitably the war ends, this increased demand drops, and how are the local manufacturers going to support that impact? Because you run the risk of creating a bubble, and then demand goes down, and it explodes, and then it disappears. And the ones that are going to disappear are not the ones in the large urban centers, are the ones in the smaller communities. So the people that are there, the most vulnerable, are the first ones to lose their accessibility. Also, for Ukraine, has been investing for a very long time into its ICT sector. So it made sense for us to look towards this modeling and to the 3D printing. So in order to be successful, you need to bridge the gap between who are the technology owners, these international companies, and the local manufacturers. So you need to ensure protection for the patents and the technology. At the same time, how do you train these people at a quick enough pace for this to actually work? And how do you make these businesses work together for a very long time? So you kind of need to have this top approach where you look at the whole system, also from the trading side, from the regulatory side. But when you're approaching the problem, you need to address the very big issue that a lot of the people on the ground don't even know how to use Excel. So you do need to look at all of these things and try to work them together. I'm going to speed up because this is, it's already gone. So the big challenge here for us, and where we like to touch more, is this issue that most of the international community looks at disability inclusion as a humanitarian problem, not as a development goal. you need to look beyond this direct support to the person with disability. They need that support cannot stop, but you need to start working on the structures that exist behind them. So 3D printing is fantastic. 3D printing in the development world is fantastic. But if you do not have, in the education system, the trainers that will keep feeding the human resources to the market, to the regulators, to the government, to sustain this, what you're going to do is that you're going to go in, you're going to run out of money, and nothing leaves. You train a few people there, but there is no mechanism for horizontal knowledge transfer. So this is part of what we are working, to the point that we are working with regulators for them to understand that even the quality management system that our colleagues here are trying to, this logistical challenge, how do you put something over there but still meets the regulatory framework so that it can be supported by the state funds? This also needs to be addressed. Because yes, we are lowering the price, but we are talking about many communities where a family lives with less than $100 a month. So between priorities of feeding your children and getting a prosthetic, it all is going to win the feeding. So you do need to work in all of this. So we are here to try and support the private sector in a responsible and feasible way. So for that, we are now working on developing a more global approach, which is how do we pick up these proven solutions from the private sector, how do we bring them into the countries, and how do we support the structures in the countries while supporting the private sector to put in all of these mechanisms into place. Additionally, we need to bring a bit more broader, which is how do we work with the private sector to adopt workplace accommodations? What are those? The awareness, not only the tools and everything around it, and also how do we provide local institutions with the capacity to provide this training, not only to the person with disability, so that they can access the skills they need to be employed, but also to employers, how do they make their spaces more accommodating, and even to governments and to other private international actors, so that everything can be merged in a way that is, from the ground up, sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Noriko. Thank you, Eduardo, for this fantastic project. So now the floor is open for questions. Do you have questions which you would like to bring to our speakers? Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Emil from Rwanda. Thank you for your experience. And let me start with Eduardo, actually, with the last slide about the challenges that you are really facing, not only your country, even global challenge. Because I'm looking at the sustainability way, where the government need to take like the ownership on funding the existing approach, like the initiative that you already have as a project, and how can we maintain, like, influence the government to fund, like to provide a small support, like 100% support to that particular project, even to roll out where in every community where people they are in need, you know. So what are the strategies can we buy in and also contextualize depending on the country, and what could also be the role of the community in the process. In terms of, I'm looking at the insurance companies, how they can also play their role in terms of the covering the whole course of the prosthetics in line with the needs of people who are in that particular challenge, you know. Yeah, that's my question to Eduardo. Thank you.
Okay, let me break down the answer into different sections. The government needs to look at the problem as a multifaceted problem. One of them is, in order to make whatever any fund sustainable, you need to look at how much the cost that goes into the fund. Developing local manufacturing capacity allows you to lower the cost, meaning that the fund can reach more people. So it is important to create, government or external financial mechanisms for private sector actors that play a role in government strategies. But there needs to be the understanding that in order to be sustainable, these actors need to be profitable. Another part is creating the oversight, the proper oversight for the insurance companies. Insurance companies have some practices that make it very, very difficult to work with. One of them is the lead times for payment. Because if I'm a private sector and I am being paid by the insurance company, I know that I'm getting my money after 6 months. So whatever is the cost of money, I'm putting it into the product and I'm charging it to them. So resolving these administrative mechanisms, these regulatory and administrative mechanisms, reduces pressure over the private sector and it accelerates the capacity of the private sector to refinance and reinvest. Rwanda, I don't know too well. I'm actually traveling this week to Nigeria because we are also expanding there. But one of the things is the importance of local community for the rehabilitation. Again, because the way most government funds are structured, there is this strong tendency for the rehabilitation clinics that are providing the prosthetics, doing the delivery, to input the cost of the rehabilitation therapy into the product. So what this makes is that if you have a more complex disability and you need multiple cycles, they are just putting the cost in there. So they are moving the barrier for sustainability into the barrier for entry. So this is something that the government needs to be aware, and this means that whatever extension services exist in Rwanda for the physical therapy and the rehabilitation, the professionals need to be trained, and even these local community actors that work on health, because we know that there are other actors there, if they can provide basic services for relearning how to walk, how to helping verticalize people that have lost a limb, this accelerates the rehabilitation and the re-entering into the economy, reducing the pressure. So it is important to look at it as a complex system where it needs multiple entry points simultaneously. I don't know if I answered all the question.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I would give a question from my side to our upper limb experts. In developed countries, we are seeing that the usage of upper limb prosthetics is very often dropped by the user. So how do you see this with your devices? How is the expectation for the user who are using our or your devices? You can answer in order, up to you guys.
Okay. So how we are dealing with this is in underdeveloping countries, mostly the prosthetic that we produce are globally are available, are very heavy. And most of the people living there are already malnutrition and they cannot hold a lot of weight. So that's why the prosthetic has to be lightweight. So we used carbon fiber and aircraft aluminum so that it can reduce the weight, as well as it should be durable enough so that they can use it in multiple tasks, importantly the labor-intensive tasks. And up till now, our success ratio is 94%, which is a huge difference compared to the one with the upper limbs prosthetics. Globally, I think it's 44%, but since we are also forming a community around it, and tracking that our prosthetic is still using or not. So we were able to make it to 94% successfully.
Hugo or Michael?
So, I think that, for example, I can give you an example for a little kid that had to travel for 8 hours until our office, and we couldn't give the prosthetics in that moment. And we say, that was like 7 years ago when we were starting. And we say, sorry, we need to fix a little thing here. You can stay in an hotel, but maybe it would be better if you could back later. So that was a little kid. And he was, with all this expectation, he was saying, I want to show my prosthetics on Monday for all my friends. They're gonna laugh of me if I don't bring these prosthetics. Then I saw that here was the problem. We need to handle the expectation, to understand, to ask first what they really need. And with that, we can continue with something that we can help. And that's why we create the mobile clinics, because it's really frustrating that they have to come into our office for traveling for 8 hours, and sometimes things happen. We know that this is personalized, this is customized, and it's not easy for them to travel this distance. So we are going to them. It's going to be easy for them if they don't need to travel, if they don't have to continue moving. They're going to feel more relaxed in that way. And we are delivering the prosthetics at the same time in the mobile clinics. And that's good because we are creating community. And when we deliver an assistive device to someone that is more shy, when he sees another guy doing something cool, being more crazy, he's going to feel more confident. So a good way to create more confidence, or that you feel more comfortable with your prosthetic, is to see another one doing the same. And you see, okay, I can do it too. They need to have feedback. They need to be always, it's not only deliver the prosthetics. We need to understand how you're doing, how you feel. They like to feel that they care. So think about the person.
Thank you. Michael?
Yeah, I mean, for us at Victoria Hand Project, we've seen the same things that they've mentioned. So sort of to echo that, but then also one thing that we found for the uptake is working with certified prosthetists in the country. That's a very important part for us to ensure that the limb fits well, there's no skin breakdown, it's comfortable, because if the prosthetic is, pushing against a bony prominence, then somebody will just get rid of it, they won't wear it. So that's a very important part, and then sort of, just having our partners keep in communication with some of the recipients, and then, if they have any issues, then helping address that. One of the good things with 3D printing is that if the socket, after a month they find that it doesn't fit well, or their limb changes shape, then they can pretty quickly and easily 3D print that and then fit someone, within a few days. And then, we also are trying to overcome the barrier of distance. And right now we're primarily working in major cities, but then trying to find ways to sort of get people that are in smaller communities, more rural areas. But it's just an ongoing process and learning from our partners. I mean, our team, we're all located in Canada, and that's why we really rely on our international partners for that expertise in the community, but then also clinically.
Okay, thank you, Michael. So the session is already ended. We have to leave. The new guys are already coming. We could talk for hours or for days. So everybody who wants more information, we are still around. We can talk. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you very much for your contribution, and see you later. Thank you.
This is